those little moments of affirmation are huge. And we know this as coaches, right? But for our players to affirm each other is a big deal, and it's a lost art in coaching. I really believe it's getting further and further away where we're just trying to dictate and to run everything because we do. We have a limited amount of time. We got things we got to get done. We got a big game on Friday, whatever it is. But man, those moments at the end of practice where you can just say, "Hey, what was good today, guys?" Or "Hey, what was bad?" Let them talk. Listen, man, the more they feel like it's theirs and they're owning it and they're together and they're building each other up, the better off, all of our teams are going to be in the long run.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it.
Today we are joined by the head men's basketball coach at East Texas Baptist University, Chris Lovell. Coach Lovell has been coaching for 18 years as an assistant for 6 years and 12 as a head coach. His career record is 251 wins with 127 losses, with high school stops at Grapevine Faith Christian School and Prestonwood Christian Academy. He led Prestonwood to 3 straight TAPS 5A state championships in 2014, 15, and 16. At Bossier Parish Community College in 4 years, he took them from 5 wins to 20 wins with a top 25 ranking in Division I JUCO. In 2023, he led the Tigers to the second best season in school history, going 24-6, winning the ASC championship and advancing to the NCAA tournament. Coach Lovell was named the TABC Coach of the Year in 2016 and the LABC Junior College Coach of the Year in 2018 and 2019. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast.
Coach.
Matt, how you doing?
Man, I'm great. How about you?
Doing wonderful, man. Doing wonderful.
It's just been 11 years since I saw you again.
It's been a minute. Hopefully I look the same. I'm not sure. So
You actually do. It's incredible. I have a lot more gray than you do. I don't think you have any. I don't know. I don't know how you're doing that.
It's a little. You get close, you can see it a lot better.
Well, man, tell me how you're doing. And again, I mentioned it's been 11 years. I'll kind of go into that in a little bit, but love just to hear about you right now.
No, I'm doing great. I speak all summer, and so I travel the country. I speak to about 50,000 high school students around the country and around the world, and I've been out of the country 3 times this season. Just got back from the FIBAs about a week ago there in Manila in the Philippines. And so, man, just been traveling, speaking a lot, just keeping everything in perspective as we're gearing up for a new season. But, man, kids are good. I got one. My oldest boy's here with me at East Texas Baptist. He's a sophomore. And then I've got a senior. In high school at Houghton High School in Houghton, Louisiana. I commute every day to East Texas Baptist from Louisiana, just so everybody knows. And then my daughter is a freshman in high school, and so it's full house. My wife's keep holding the fort down, and I'm running around doing my thing. So it's a lot of fun.
Man, how do you balance that? The coaching at your level and all the recruiting, everything that you have to do there, but then speaking of 50,000 students and people over the summer, how do you balance both those things?
I don't think there's balance in any of it. Honestly, I just think you do the best you can and you understand what your limits are and just keep those limits in place. There are times where you get tired and you need a break and you know when to take those. And I definitely do that. And my wife knows what those limits are and she keeps me in check on that as well. But, balance is the hardest thing for us guys that are high achievers and that are out there grinding and trying to be successful in every area of our lives. And so I think that's a common struggle, but I'm not sure I have a great answer for that. I just do the best I can, man. That's it.
Well, you've been doing a great job because you had a lot of success last year winning the ASC championship. And then with all the other speaking things you do, I'm just really impressed by what all you're able to accomplish, man.
Well, thanks, Matt. Hey, and by the way, just while we're in the arena talking about those kind of things, man, I'm so proud of you and what you've done there, Grapevine Faith, man, just your longevity and just, man, it's a great place. And you know that because you're there. But, man, you have built an incredible program, and it's just awesome how our paths cross there, in the exchange. But man, I cheer for you every season from a distance. So just know that.
Wow. I do really appreciate that. And I've always felt like, I mean, you are really the foundation of our program in a lot of ways, because before you, there was a lot of instability. You were at Grapevine Faith 2012 to 2013, and then obviously
That's
went
right.
on to Prestonwood. But if people don't know, the connection that we have is the fact that, yeah, you and Coach Feemster were kind of instrumental in me coming over here, because I was at McKinney High School. I really had no clue
Right.
about the private school world, and hadn't even heard of Grapevine Faith Christian School. And I was able to come here, meet you. You told me about the school and the kids, and yeah, I've been here. This is year 11 now, so it's a huge thanks to you. But then also, I just never felt led to leave or do anything else. So I feel like I'm right where God wants me to be, and I'm just going to be faithful as long as He wants me to be here.
Well, I've always said the greatest thing you can give players, the greatest thing you can give your own kids is consistency.
Yeah.
And the fact that you've been able to do that and put down roots and build into that program and make it exactly the way you want it, man, it's a testament to what God's called you to do. But it's also a testament to your loyalty to that place and to the program. And man, y'all have had great success. And I just want you to know I'm a fan.
Oh, I appreciate that. I do want to throw out a quick little story, because meeting you here at Faith, you just made it feel so easy. You went through the schedule with me, talked about what it was going to look like. You talked about the players, and it really even introduced me to some of them. And then, I don't know, I don't think I was with you at this time, but I got to walk across or go over to Worth Street, our middle school campus, and I got to meet Andy Postema. And not many people may know that name, but he worked here for a long time, got to coach a couple of his boys. He shook, and if you know him, he's one of the most direct people out there. He shook my hand. He said, "Well, we really liked the former coach." Like, that was my first interaction with him. I thought, oh wow, like I realized I have pretty big shoes to fill. And again, just a huge thanks to you. You set me up for success because of the way that you had run the program the year before. And so, but I appreciate all your kind words. I just will never forget my first interaction with Andy and the bar he set for me because of how much they cared for you.
Well, the Postemos are really good people and love their kids. And man, it's awesome that you have gotten to pour into them. They're greatest.
I love getting to ask people about their daily habits. Tim Ferriss, his book Tools of Titans is one that really inspired me to kind of look into my own daily habits, and just knowing your schedule and all of the things that you're juggling. What daily habits set you up for success?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think first and foremost, it all goes back to my time with the Lord. Everybody lives their life according to something. And for me to be successful in my coaching day in and day out, and to be the kind of man that I need to be, the kind of leader, the kind of husband I need to be to all the different groups of people, to my wife, to my kids, to my players, to the administration, to the other students that make up the body here at East Texas Baptist, first and foremost is my personal time, with the Lord. And that's a very important thing. And, I'm different when I don't have that time, right?
Yeah.
Versus when I do. And everybody's a little different. I know not everyone will necessarily agree with that. But for me, it is the most important thing I do on a daily basis. And so for me, that time kind of sets me in a good place mentally, in a good place emotionally. I kind of fill up my cup to where I'm able to pour out into others all day. And so that's where I get my feeling and to where I get ready for my day every day. And that could be as simple as my time in the Word before I leave my house, or it may be on my commute here. I have about a 45-minute commute every day to campus. And I use a lot of that time to meditate and to pray and to listen to certain kind of songs to get me in the right frame of mind for the day. But that's one of the habits, and probably the most important habit I have on a daily basis. The second thing that helps me be successful is just my time exercising. The older I get, I'm not a young pup anymore. I may not look like I'm too old, but I want you to know I'm not who I used to be. But all that being said, my time exercising is the most important thing to keep the stress out of my life. And this. I mean, you're all about it as well. But I run on the elliptical every day, for 45 minutes. My time in the weight room, and I'm not a big bulk guy, but I'm a more maintain
Yeah,
to where everything
functional
doesn't
movement.
fall
Yeah,
down kind of thing. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. I don't want to get hurt. That's the other
that's
part of
right.
it. But, I think my cardio, my weight training really goes in to me keeping the stress off of my life, not being overwhelmed by things that could overwhelm me if I don't have an outlet. It keeps me from blowing up on people, things of that nature. I think that's important, especially when you're in the season too, because the stress builds, right? We're all
Yeah.
under incredible stress. And then the other thing I would say just in my daily habits is just keeping coaching in my life in perspective. Let me expound a little bit on that. I have a ministry, and I mentioned it just a minute ago, where I'm when season's over, when I hit the ground running in April, I'm on the road, and I'm on the road until August, and so it's a great thing. But the reason I do that, and I don't recommend it for everybody, but the reason I feel like the Lord's put that in my life is that it keeps my life in perspective. And what I mean by that is this: if it ever becomes about just wins and losses for me, that's not a good place for me to be. And it's real easy for it just to become about wins and losses. Heck, we're in a profession where if you win, you get a contract extension. If you lose, you get fired. And it's all
Yeah.
public, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's our profession. Nobody else has a profession like that. If you get let go at a company, they give you a severance package and you walk away and say that, that you quit or whatever, and they let
It
you
was
do it,
mutual. It
but
was mutual. Yeah.
in coaching, it comes out in the paper. You were fired. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like there's nothing else like it. But if it ever becomes about wins and losses, it's not a good place for me to be personally. And so the reason my ministry keeps life in perspective, and man, when I could go and speak and see the light bulb turn on in a kid's mind about their relationship with Christ and what that means for eternity, then that puts all the wins and losses in perspective. I say this all the time. The goal is to win every game in coaching. Are you with me? We don't coach to lose games. The goal is to win every game if we can, right? But the end game in coaching is for us to model the right perspective to these student athletes so that one day they're great fathers, they're great husbands, they're great churchgoers, they're great citizens. And the way we do that is by keeping life in perspective. If it's only about winning and losing, we can lose that. We can lose the right perspective. And so for me, my ministry helps me do that. And that's a daily thing. Like I'll give you, for instance, yesterday was Sunday, and we go to team church together once a month, me and the whole team, the whole coaching staff. It's non-negotiable. It's as
Nice.
mandatory as weights. It's as mandatory as practice. And so I was speaking at Cypress Baptist Church yesterday in Bossier City, Louisiana. And so we put the team in vans, put the coaching staff in vans, put my wife and kids in the car, put my mom and dad in the car, and we all went to church together. And the reason we do that is to build community, to build culture, but it's also to keep the right perspective. And I think worshiping together is a big, big deal. And so for me, that helps us keep life in perspective because they'll remember the games, they'll remember the road trips and everything, but they'll also remember the other things you do with them, like worshiping with them, like community service, like whatever it is your program does. And then the last thing I would tell you I do on a daily basis that helps me just stay in a successful mindset is I do a lot of listening. I communicate for a living. I make a living with my voice, okay? But there is power in listening. And I take time every day to listen to my players. I want to hear from them. I can't just tell them what I need them to do every day, but I want to listen to them and not just listen to them about how things are going in the locker room and how things are going on the court, but I want to listen to them about what's going on in their life. I've always said this: if a player feels like you're using them to win games, they'll never give you their best. But if they believe you truly care about them beyond the court, that's when you tap into the special sauce. That's where you tap into the place where they'll give you their ultimate best because they know you care about them. And that's where you kind of get them. So I spend a lot of time listening to my guys. I have an open door policy. I'm not the head coach that the guys are afraid of. I'm the head coach that has my door open, that they can come in at any moment Tell me what's going on. We talk, we listen, we have meetings, of course, but even in going on through days, I had a kid in here the other day, his mom's got cancer. Well, how do you walk through that with a 18-year-old college student who's at school for the first time? How do you walk through with a kid who, lost his grandmother the other day, and he's telling you about it, and you have the opportunity to pray with them and help them navigate that. It's just about being there and doing life with these guys. And I think all of that, I know that's a long answer to a short question, but all of that for me keeps me in a successful mindset. The practices of a successful leader and a successful coach, in my opinion, at least from where I come from.
Coach, there's a lot of gold to unpack right there. First question is, what time are you getting up in the morning?
Oh, man, I'm not an early bird. I will tell you this. I am a late night guy. Okay. And so I go against all the books that say get up at 5 in the morning. I go against all of that. Now I do get up about 7:30 every day. 7:30 is kind of my go time. Obviously I'm not teaching classes. I don't, have to do any of that anymore. So I'm not up at 6 a.m. But, 7:30, I'm up. I'm into my routine. I'm having my breakfast. I'm getting my son out the door to school. Then I'm in the Word. And then I take my drive to campus when I get all that done and take that hour to get here. And then I'm into my day. But I will tell you this, my days are long. And, tonight I probably won't get home until 9 or 10 p.m. And then I won't go to bed till about 1 or 2. And so, everyone has a different kind of schedule, but I'm a little bit of a night owl and I need things to be quiet where I can focus and get things done late at night. And so I trade in some of that morning time for the night.
No, that makes sense. You said something that I wrote down about making sure that you're filling yourself up, because I think you're right on the money with coaching. A lot of coaches look at this as a calling, as a ministry, and I'm sure you do the basketball part just the same way that you do, the actual ministry that you're participating in as well. And there is this idea that we're constantly, emptying out and giving to others and giving to others. And my thought was, when you said that, I wonder what coaches are filling themselves up with, because I think we have to be careful with that. If we are emptying ourselves up, but not taking time to refill, or if we are refilling, it's just the same way we talk with our players. What are we putting in our minds? What are we having in front of us? What are we listening to? And obviously, you and I, as believers, filling ourselves up with the Word, listening to a great sermon, listening to worship music, that's it. But I think that's just, I don't even have like a point there. It's more of just something for coaches to think about. We want to continue to have our cups filled full so that we can pour out to others. But what are we filling up with? I think that's something important to think about.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, every coach knows this, but, we're not just coaches. I mean, we're counselors, we're psychiatrists, we're, you know what I mean? We're social workers sometimes. We're a little bit of everything in the coaching profession. And so we have to be able to be filled up to be able to give so much to our players, because they're watching us, man. They watch everything we do. They watch how we respond in every difficult situation. They're listening to every word we say. And, one of the reasons I got into coaching, I don't know about you, Matt, but for me, one of the reasons I got into coaching is I never really had any great role model coaches in my life growing up. Some guys did, and we're fortunate to have them. But one of the reasons I got into coaching is because I wanted to be the coach to other people that I never had. And it drove me. And I think you can learn a lot from all kinds of coaches, good, bad, indifferent, doesn't matter. Yeah. You can take something from all of them that shape you, right? And so for me, that was part of the reason I got into coaching, was not just to win basketball games. And don't get me wrong, I want to win every one, but to really, really influence a young person's life for a lifetime.
That perspective you have about wins and losses, I do my very, very best. I mean, I've watched Ted Lasso, season 1, where
that's right. Yeah.
No, where he keeps talking about he believe, and it's not, I don't care about wins and losses. Finally, it's not that important. Finally, his assistant coach just screams at him, it is important. But that is professional. But at your level, it pretty much is almost professional basketball at this point with all the stuff going on out there and the changes. And sometimes it feels like that even at the high school level. But I believe the same way that you do about what we're doing here and that it is more than about wins and losses. But Coach, how do you get to that point? Because I know you're competitive. Like, again, I've been around you. You don't win 3 state championships at Prestonwood. I don't care how great of players you have. You still got to be competitive and teach those dudes how to play together and want to win. How do you keep that balance when, if I'm being completely transparent, the years where I feel like I do the worst job of coaching are the years where I'm the most stressed about wins and losses? How do you keep that balance?
It's the hardest thing to do. And I think the older I have gotten, um, I think you look at it differently the older you get. When you're young, you're like, man, I got to win every game. I got to be successful, man. I got to build my resume. These are the things we do. There's nothing wrong with that. I love driven people, passionate people. That's who I am as a person as well. But I think the older I've gotten, the more I've just realized, hey, yeah, we're trying to win every game, but at the end of the day, it's how we go about trying to win every game that matters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? My first year here at ETVU, I'll give you for an example. I rebuilt a really bad JUCO program to be successful, and then I took the job at ETVU in the middle of COVID. And our first year here, I came in, I was just like, man, we're going to get this done. And I was just, man, we got to win. And I was just pressing buttons and trying to, I had the players from the last coach still here, some of them. And then I had the new recruiting class that I brought in, and I was trying to get them all on the same page. And man, it was just a mess year one, but a lot of that had to do with how I was putting so much pressure on them to win and so much pressure on myself to win right away. And it took us 3 years to get this thing where I wanted it, right? It took us 3 recruiting classes. It took us, a couple of years to get it there, which was way too slow for me. I wanted it year one, right? But I think what I found out this last year is that I didn't talk a lot about winning or losing games. We talked a lot about every game on our schedule can either help us achieve our goals or every game could keep us from achieving our goals. And so we literally would write an arrow up and an arrow down on the board every day. It kind of became our motto, is what are we going to do tonight? Are we going to use this game to help us achieve our goals? Or are we going to use this game and it'd be the game we look back on and go, man, that's the game that kept us from achieving our goals. And so we didn't talk a lot about winning. We talked a lot about giving our best and our personal best performance as a unit and as a team. And man, that changed our guys and how they valued games, because it's really hard to teach players how to value games, because think about it. We'll play 30 something games in a regular season. Then if they're high school players, they go straight into AAU. They're playing 3 games a day sometimes in AAU tournaments. They don't value games like they used to. It's like, oh, we got another game at 12. We got another game at 6. They're not thinking about winning or losing and how important that game is in that moment. They're just like, we got another game. And so for me, at the college level, when we recruit, we bring in high school kids, it's about teaching them how to value every game. And it's not about winning or losing. It's about how do you give your best performance in every game for your team.
That's really good. I never thought about that from a college perspective, how almost not burnt out on playing the game, but how warped the ideas of these high school players coming in might be about what games actually mean, the value in them. Because you're right, the high school level, we play 40 games a year now, and then they're doing 40 to 50 in select. So, and now obviously we like to think that in the high school realm, each game does matter. There's district play. There's something that we're working towards. In select, though, there is this idea of, hey, win or loss. Hey, we got a game in 2 hours. No problem. Get past it. So I never thought about that for you guys. I almost having to reshape or reframe how they view each game and the importance of them, but then not letting that teeter too far past to where they start to clinch up. They start to get nervous. They're not playing free anymore. Right. That is a dilemma, man.
Yeah, it is. And it's just the way basketball has changed. And I think there's a lot of value in select ball and there's a lot of value in
Yeah.
school ball. And I love, I think it's both. I had a dad was on the phone with me the other day. He was talking about his kid and his recruitment and all this stuff. And I have these conversations all the time. And and he's like, well, his AAU coach says his high school team isn't that important and what he does on his high school team. And his high school coaches tell me it's not that important what
Man.
AAU team he plays for, what circuit he's on or whatever. And to me, you got to have both.
Yeah.
It can't be
Yeah.
one versus the other. It's got to be both, helping to shape kids, because I think the greatest thing about high school basketball and select basketball, because it's really all high school basketball, is that they're getting game minutes and they're learning how to manage games and how to play, and their growth by playing games and not being nervous and having more confidence and working through different systems with different voices in their lives and so forth. There's a lot of value and all of that, but it can't be one versus the other. I believe there's value in both. And so,
Yep.
But man, they're playing a ton of games, and it is a challenge when they get to us, because they go from playing that many games to just playing their
Yeah.
college
Almost
games.
flipping
And
it.
man, so
Yeah.
much rides. It flips. That's right. Yeah. So it's a challenge.
I've always done my very, very best, especially since coming to Faith, to never put a player in a position where they feel like, it's us versus them from the high school to select. And I want them to feel free to, one, I encourage our guys to play. And you remember, from the more that we can have them playing year round, the better they're going to be for us. And so it's almost an expectation in the spring that they do play. But when I can't do it, when I'm telling parents and players, on Team Map, hey, this spring season, our improvement season, play select ball. I'll help you find a team. Once they do that, though, I can't say, oh, by the way, we also have this, and this you got to do with school ball. Because then they're like, well, wait a minute, like, which one are we supposed to be doing? And I think so many times too, we forget that they're kids and they need to have a little bit of time, like let them leave right after school. So my approach has been, I want them to play select ball. Faith basketball ends in February, hopefully early March. And then we'll work out in second period. I'll be their individual skill coach, but Faith basketball doesn't start up again, besides open gyms, which are truly optional without a wink involved or anything like that. It doesn't begin again until the fall. That's been I think a positive routine or process, to where they do that, but they don't feel pressure from me, and I'm encouraging them. I don't know. I think that's the way to go.
And for the guys, for the high school coaches that do stuff where it's not a lot period, where there's a week there, you can hit a team camp, and just stay with your team and build some experiences, even if it's just 4 days in the summer or 3 days. We started doing 1-day team camps here at East Texas Baptist, just to take the pressure off the guys to come out here for 3 days in a row and play. But hey, come out here for a day. We'll get you 3 games. You get the experience, you get to hang out, and then you're right back to it. It's a lot easier for them to take 1 day off versus 3 or 4 days off in the middle of the summer when they're in select ball. So I think it's just find the balance, and every coach is different for sure, but I think both are valuable.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Ballogy. Manage and measure your players' skill development and increase accountability year-round utilizing the Ballogy app. Boost inter-squad competition with drills backed by the National High School Basketball Coaches Association, including a 40-shot Ballogy skills assessment. Please visit ballogy.com/teams for information on how you can provide this resource for your team. I'd love to know what's one of the best things that you've borrowed lately, especially since I learned you have a 45-minute commute there and back. So you got an hour and a half in the car every day. I'm pretty sure you're listening, learning something cool. So what's one of the best things you borrowed?
Well, I think more so than my commute, that has helped me just think about things, listen to things, and learn from people. But I think also, sorry, someone's calling into
You're good.
But I think also the thing that's helped me is I travel the world a lot, and I'm fortunate to be able to do that. I'm not bragging. I just my speaking ministry takes me places, and I had a friend who passed away 2 years ago from COVID, and he used to tell me, he said, Chris, when you go to these other countries, you should really try to connect with coaches. And then when he passed away, I never really thought much about it. And then
Yeah.
Matt, he passed away, and it really rocked my world about 2 years ago. And it's taken me a long time to get past it. But one of the things that came back to me after he passed away, because we were like best friends, we talked like 6 times a day on the phone, was
Wow.
he said, you should try to connect with some of these coaches when you travel. And so, I was traveling to Asia, and I was traveling to Germany. I was going to some different places, and I got on Twitter one day, and I sent some messages. I was going to the Philippines to do some mission work, to do some speaking, and I sent some messages, to three of the most successful coaches in the Philippines. They have a huge professional league there in the Philippines. They have their national team as well that competes, worldwide, just like every other country does. And I reached out to them, and two of them hit me back. And Chat Riaz, who was the national team coach for the Filipino national team this year, and Yang Yuicho is the head of the federation in the Philippines. Okay. And so they both hit me back. And on my next trip to the Philippines, I got to sit and have lunch with them and start building a relationship with these coaches who had won like 9 professional championships. And there had been 9-time coach of the years. These guys, they know their stuff, right? And then they started inviting me to come back and, hey, would you come hang out at a practice and just be there? I was like, well, I would love that the next time I'm here. And then it turned in on my next trip to sitting in with the national team and being there as they prepared for the FIBAs. And then it turned into me going back for the FIBAs here just 2 weeks ago and sitting there, and literally for 2 weeks, Matt, I sat courtside. And the international game is fascinating to me because the kids play super hard. They're super skilled, not always the most talented or the best players in the world, but man, they run good stuff, man. And they play their butts off. And man, I sat there courtside this last 2 years of my life and just building these relationships with these coaches, getting a front row seat to the international game. And man, I have taken so much stuff from them, just from drills that they do in practice, that I went, man, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that, this next year. I have a list to offensive schemes that I'll put in this year that I learned. There's a lot of centered up ball screen action. We play through our bigs here. We do a lot of dribble drive action, and the Filipino teams are typically really small with one big, so they run a lot of dribble drive, and the variations that they run out of the dribble drive that I picked up from them, we're going to implement this year. But also a lot of centered up ball screen action that Germany ran, and that Latvia ran, who was one of the surprise teams in the FIBAs. But a lot of dribble handoff into a center ball screen, into a roll and replace, into a cleanup screen, and just some really great actions that I had seen before, but I never thought using. But I watched it over and over again. I went, man, I'm going to take some of this stuff and do it. And so I think the lesson for me and all of that, to answer that question, is I think you can learn from anyone.
Yeah.
And every experience we have, right? We're only as good as the people we meet and the places we go and the books we read. We've all heard that before, right? I know that's a motto at Faith, and because I've been there before. But all that being said, man, that's really been true in my life the last 2 years. The places I've gone and the coaches I've connected with and the doors that it has opened up for me to be able to experience in the last 2 years of my life has grown me immensely as a coach for ETBU and what we're trying to do here.
I think one of the best or the most important characteristics that great coaches have is curiosity. And it seems like you've been able to keep that. And my question is, I fell into that trap probably year 4 or 5 here as in my mid 30s of thinking, I've got this thing figured out. I got 5A taps. Like I know what we're doing. And in that mindset, you almost start to shut down and close yourself off from continuing to look and see where the game is headed and what changes are being made. And you maybe lose some of that curiosity, over your career and all the success you've had. How do you keep that same level that it seems like you have?
Well, we've got to continue to grow with the game. I think you said that just a second ago, because the game is evolving, and I think the game's going to take another turn. We're really in the era a positionless basketball right now, right? Where everyone spaces and shoots and everyone, does those things. But I really believe if you watch what's happening around the world with basketball and just even professionally, the game becomes even more fundamental the higher levels you go up, right? But all that being said, I really believe it's taken a turn to where the old school post player is coming back now at
Yeah.
the higher levels. And so we really play through our bigs, but I think it's starting to circle back around if you just watch it. And I think for me, it's trying to be ahead of the curve, and you got to be creative, because just like you think, okay, I know what I'm going up against every night in our league now, right? You've been there 4 or 5 years. You know what other coaches do. You know what they're doing. Well, the hardest coaches to coach against aren't the guys that continue to do the same thing over and over again and just do it with great excellence. At least you know what's coming, right? The
Yeah.
really tough coaches to go against are the guys that put in wrinkles every year. They're the guys that evolve and continue to become creative within their base structure. And that's what we tried to do here. I said, okay, what are 10 things we can add this year and be more creative with our offense? And what's another way I can get the ball to the big? What's another way I can create, an opportunity for my point guard, or whatever it is throughout your base system that's going to make it harder for teams to guard you year in and year out. And we even went to a deal in the last 3 years of my coaching. Really, I started this in JUCO, but man, we talk about the game evolving, but I've even evolved to the point in my recruiting to where my 6'9" guys, and we have 5 guys on our roster this year that are 6'9" or better. And so we believe in length and athleticism here. But even my big guys, if they can't switch and guard 1 through 5, I don't recruit them. And
Wow.
we really have gone from switching 1 through 5. If you watch the NBA and how people are playing really around the world right now, that's a big deal. And if you can recruit to that kind of system, then it's really tough to break you down, and then we front the post a lot. Fronting post has really gone away, but we've started fronting the post. It's really hard to throw over us with backside help and make a play without hitting the goal.
Especially with good ball pressure too. Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we've just tried to evolve every year and just add, things to, to what we're doing to make us a little bit tougher for guys to scout us and a little bit tougher to guard year in and year out. It's like, oh, they used to do that. And then as soon as they start figuring that out, we may go back to some stuff. We may, continue to evolve. But I think that's the key, is just continuing to become creative, even though you're still teaching your base system. We're probably never going to go away from our dribble drive action, our modified ball screen actions that we run on all offense. But we're going to continue to become creative in how we do those things. And I think that's the key, as we continue to go and grow as coaches.
Yeah, I think you're right on the money. And I love the way that you said that. Is you don't have to necessarily just blow up everything that you're doing every year, because there is an idea that, like you talked about, it's nice when players have the same coach for a few years. It's also nice when they get to play in the same system and concepts for a few years, because they're able to feel that comfort, that ability to know where they're supposed to be. And because not every player can just pick up something new instantly and be great at it. I'd imagine that very few can. But maybe the art of coaching a little bit is those wrinkles that you're talking about, and where we take what we already do well, and this is a nice little change that will allow this player to maximize his abilities. And I love that your idea of your conference opponents, for them to look at you a little bit differently. I don't want my district opponents to think, oh, well, they're just going to do the same old stuff that they've always done. And if that's happening, then at some point, we're not very special anymore. And to your other point of the game changing, I completely agree. I think the post is going to come back, and people are going to start to because I've been talking to a few people about race and space and things like that. And, we started that at McKinney with Wes Watson doing that. And there weren't a lot of teams. This was the mid 2000s. There weren't a lot of teams that were maximizing the 3-point line, playing smaller, really pressing, running and gunning. So we felt a little bit special. And then you get to the point where Coach Arsenault at Grinnell, I asked him why, the Grinnell system was changing for him. He wasn't having the same success. He's like, man, other guys are doing it. It's just not that unique anymore. So when everybody starts to do what is popular, then the new outliers come around. And what's the opposite of race and space and playing positionless? Stick that big dude back down there again, and
That's right.
not necessarily just walk it up and run sets, but man, if we're going to be five guards or five smaller players and you have one big guy and you're actually running through it, that poses a problem for us.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, and I just been watching it. And for us, we run a lot of dribble drive and we try to recruit a roster that allows us to play different ways. So if we want to go small with one big, we can. If we want to go a little bit bigger in our modified ball screen actions and go two bigs with three guards around and run into a lot of our DHOs and run into a lot of our centered up ball screen actions or side ball screens or whatever, we do it. We try to adjust in game. We try to have both systems in place, right? So that whatever the other team has trouble guarding, then that probably dictates what you're going to run,
Man, that's
on
good.
that night the most. Yeah.
See, I'm too stubborn. And I'm more of like a Jason Garrett. We have this is our way, and process. We're going to stick with it. And I would say like one of the areas of growth for me is, those in-game adjustments or having more than one thing to go to. And, but it's over the years, I have been like, we're going to play fast. We're going to shoot it. And the nights where it doesn't go in, we tip our hat and we keep going. There's something to that. But then what if we have something else we can go to? And coach, I haven't figured that out yet.
Well, you will. I mean, I don't have it figured out either. I just think for me, and instead of teaching one system, we've taught two. And we run them. There are primaries, and everything comes out of our two primaries. But they're very different what our primaries are, and so it allows us to figure out what our opponents are going to struggle guarding the most, and we mix it up through the course of the game as well. Throw a little dribble dive at them, then we'll get into some ball screen stuff, and just see what they're struggling with on that night. Some teams are going to be really big and they're going to struggle to stay in front of us if we go small. And some teams are going to be really small. And if we go big, they're going to really struggle to rebound and guard us and keep us from scoring. And so that's where I think, in coaching, it's just at this level, it then becomes about the mismatches and the most problems you can create for the other team.
I feel like I know a little bit about kind of the style of play that you want to go to, but then also a little bit about your program and culture. But what are those standards and pillars? Because when I talk about culture, that word's almost getting hard to say. Like it's such a buzzword, even though everybody has one and it is important. But I like to think of it more as standards and pillars. What are those of your program?
Yeah, we really talk about three things here. Obviously, I'm probably like every coach in America. We have a different theme every year that we kind of draw attention to and kind of plug all year long. There's no doubt about it. I mean, last year's our theme was motivated. What are we motivated toward? And this year our theme is the word driven. And so under our theme every year, there are three consistent pillars of our program. The first thing is the catchword, and it's culture. And I believe in culture. I believe when you have a bad culture, it can really train wreck your season, right? When kids aren't for each other, when the work ethic is not there, when, whatever it is, I think culture is important. That's where kids learn this is how we do things here. This is not how we do things here, right? This is how we go about our business and so forth. And so the first pillar is our culture, and it's really what we call a brotherhood. We try to get our guys to buy into the fact that we're for each other on and off the court. And that's really hard to do because, they are a team, but they're competing against each other for playing time.
That's the beautiful part of it.
Yeah. And that's the beautiful just friction that lies within every team. Right. And so it's hard for me as I compete against this guy to be for this guy, because he's playing in front of me or he's playing behind me, whatever the case may be. But then, teaching them to be for each other off the court as well. When something bad happens, man, what are you going to do? You're going to be there for your brother. Or are you going to go and lift them up? Are you going to go over to their dorm room and spend time with them and listen and talk it out? Are you going to do those kind of things together? And then when we're off the court, can we still be friends? One of the things, man, we used to talk a lot of trash on the court, right? And when we were players, but one of the things about me, I could talk trash with the best of them. When the game was over, no matter what happened on the court, it was over for me. And I was able to hang out with that guy I was talking trash with. We were able to go to Taco Bell, run to the border, and
Do you
eat
feel like
bad
your
things.
players can do that, or is that something a little bit different now?
Well, I think now it's a little bit harder because, at least at our level, because they feel like this can make or break their career. You know what I mean? And like a senior versus a freshman.
Yeah.
And if you're playing a freshman over a senior or whatever the case, it just brings a different dynamic, right? But I think it's hard to teach, but that culture is so important. So we resound the word brotherhood for our culture more than anything. And so we do a lot of things to build our culture. And those are the things that we do off the court, from team church, to the community service, to the fun times that we have, going on retreats and going to, play laser tag or going bowling or whatever it is, just trying to build the friendships. And so right now, our focus, my coaching staff, we met this morning, I looked at them and I said, these next 2 months, all these 2 months are about is building relationships with our guys and allowing our guys to build relationships with each other. That's what dictates your brotherhood in your culture. It's the relationships. That's the special sauce. That's the glue that keeps it together. And then the other part of
Coach, before you go to that one,
yeah,
before you go to the next one, I wanted your advice on this, because what's unique about talking with you, not only have you literally been at this school, but you've been at the high school level and at this private school world that I'm in, and then at the JUCO level. So you've hit a lot of those different spots where, like, I love the idea of August and September, this time of year. I don't care if you can work with your guys. Like, we have second period athletics, if you can work with them or not. I feel like that should be the emphasis anyway, of building those relationships between you and your players, between them. What do you think about, like, what's an appropriate amount of time and effort? Like, what's doable as a high school coach where, they're full day of school, then they're going home to where it is a little bit unique on a college campus, where, like, schedules sometimes, I'm not saying college schedules are easier, but I remember my college schedule, and there were days where, man, I got one or none. It's a nice day. I'm going to go to play sand volleyball pretty soon, and but you have that time, and they're not going back home. What do you think for high school coaches? Like, how much time can we dictate to that, or give to that? But then the balance of not overwhelming them also, to where they don't have time for other things. What are your thoughts on that?
I remember when I was the head coach at Prestonwood, and we had a lot of pressure on us to win, right? Julius, when I went back as the head coach, I was there as an assistant, then I went to Faith, and then I went back as the head coach. And Julius had just left and gone to Kentucky and got drafted by the Lakers. And the year I came back, they were like, oh, man, these guys, they're not going to be very good. I had a bunch of sophomores and, and I was just like, man, we're going to have to figure this out. But the standard was still there for us, right? To still be that team. Julius is gone. And I've got to come in and pick up the pieces of that and figure out how to keep winning. And, I had a parent. They gave me some great advice. And thankfully, I'm a pretty good listener. He pulled me aside one day, and his son was one of those sophomores I had. And he said, Coach, I know you, because his son played for me when I was the assistant at Prestonwood, Zach Peters. But Tim came to me and he said, hey, remember, every season's a journey. And he said, don't get lost in trying to be like every other team that's been here. He said, you can be different. And I thought that was so freeing for me.
Yeah.
And he told me, he said, have some fun with these guys. They're young. And man, that was a good word for me, because I was feeling the pressure, right? To continue winning state championships, as the head coach now. And man, that was good. And so, about once a week, we did something together. And I think here's what I would say for a high school coach. You don't always have to go do something special where you're spending money to create these moments for these guys. But man, like we went out one Sunday and we did a cancer run. and we're there serving the cancer run, did that together one morning. It didn't cost us a dime to do that, to go be kind to people and to serve people. That was a togetherness thing. We went to church, one week, and we were together and we worshiped together. That was another thing we did. Yeah, we went and played laser tag, one day, and that was a day we were together. But we didn't do that like 5 times a week. That's once a week, finding a time when we're in the weight room, and the time I did have with them was making sure that we did things together in the course of our lifting and after our lifting that brought us together, learning about each other, being together, sharing each other's experiences. Man, I think more than anything, it's just finding those moments in the course of a week where you go, man, at least one time this week, I'm going to have a moment where we're beyond the court and we're beyond their personal improvement on the basketball court. But man, how can I provide a moment for my players and for my coaching staff and myself to where we're just building relationships with each other? And you can do that a number of ways through a number of things. And I think it's just got to be a priority early, because the more that team loves each other, this, and the more they love you and the more you love them, man, the better it's going to be when it gets tough. And it's always going to get tough, right?
And I love the way that, there are going to be some of those scheduled moments, right? Where we're going to go play laser tag, doing the run. But then I think maybe the special sauce, or what might change or make some coaches kind of at another level, is the awareness to see when those moments pop up right in front of you. Because you're right, culture moments, times where we can build up our teams, pour into somebody, those are there all the time. But how often do we have our head down with the practice plan, the skill we got to get through, the amount of time left on the clock, things going off the floor, the pressures of winning or losing, and we miss those moments. I think maybe that 1%, a big difference between good and great, is having the awareness to see those moments when they come.
Well, and not only that, I'll tell you one of the things we do a lot here, and it's not perfect, but it's something that works for us, and is that, I'm big on listening and I'm big on asking questions. And so we'll get done with a weight session and I'll pull them together and I'll say, okay, Derry's our preseason All-American for this next year. He's going to be a pro. And I'll look at him and I'll say, hey, Derry, I said, what'd you see someone else in this weight room do today that you thought was good?
Yeah.
And he'll call out a guy, hey man, Jay was really doing a good job on this. And then another guy, I said, hey, someone else, who'd you see? And we just start a conversation. Those little moments of affirmation are huge.
No doubt.
And we know this as coaches, right? But for our players to affirm each other is a big deal. And it's a lost art in coaching. I really believe it's getting further and further away where we're just trying to dictate and to run everything, because we have a limited amount of time. We got things we got to get done. We got a big game on Friday, whatever it is. But man, those moments at the end of practice where you can just say, hey, what was good today, guys? Or, hey, what was bad? Let them talk. Listen, man, the more they feel like it's theirs and they're owning it and they're together and they're building each other up, the better off, all of our teams are going to be in the long run.
Coach, if you don't mind, I'd love to share activity that we do that is along those lines. And I got it from TJ Rosine, who, in my opinion, he's one of the best culture coaches out there at Emmanuel. And it's an IUE talk. And the only problem with the IUE talk is you do have to have a lot of time to get it done. I would say probably about 15 minutes or so if you got 10 to 12 guys. I love almost like the abbreviated version is just, hey, what's something you saw in somebody else today? Like, you can do that, in a couple minutes. And that's really, I'm going to borrow that, because that's really good. But you take your players standing in a circle, sitting in a circle, whatever, but they start with their eye. What's something that they felt like they've been improving in? Because I've noticed too, like my stepson is a great example. He doesn't think that he does a lot of things very well. Like some players, we always think of those guys that are almost on the arrogant side or the cocky side. But those are, to me, the few. Most players, there's a lot of insecurities about what they can actually do well. They don't even know at times. And maybe coaches don't highlight those things a lot, so they're left wondering. But they do it the eye. Like, what am I doing where do I feel improvement? And then they go to the you, they pick somebody in the room like, man, today I saw it. You were really getting after it defensively. And I can see that you're
Yeah.
growing in that area. And you can just see the other person like that may build, they don't even realize that the compliments that you get randomly from people about things that you didn't even notice or know about yourself, those last and they stick. And then the final one is the we. Fellas, together, we're really improving in our communication. Our enthusiasm is getting to another level. Coach, I don't care where we are within our season or practice. We might have just had the worst game of our lives. We do an IUE, and we feel great about ourselves and about each other. And then what I do is I sit there as a coach and I just kind of make a note of the yous and who hasn't got hit yet. Like, because sometimes some guys will get left out, and I make sure I pick them up at the end. But those are, you talk about doing things that cost no money. It's just our time. I will give up some defensive shell drill time any day. I'll give up anything. I'll give up any part of practice for that amount of time, because it's going to translate possibly to wins and losses, but to looking back at your season and looking at each other in the eyes and going, man, that's brotherhood right there.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I think anything we can do as coaches to, it's buy-in from them. It's information from them. And it gives you the pulse of what's going on in your program when you listen. We can't always get the pulse by just evaluating and watching, but man, you really get the pulse from listening how they're perceiving everything, in my opinion. And so,
Good.
that's where,
Man, go to number 2, because we just that was off of number
man,
1.
that was good, right? Yeah, no, that was fun. But no, I think, yeah, and the second thing we talk about beyond our culture is we talk about the word commitment a lot. It's culture and it's commitment for us. That's the second pillar for us in our program, and it's the commitment to what it takes to be on the court, and that is the classroom for us. And I mean, man, we say that. I mean, look, as basketball coaches, I know, man, we're all about the ball. I get it, but man, from where I sit as a college coach now, I was a junior college coach and was a high school coach. But from where I sit in my seat now, their degree's their moneymaker one day. Every kid I've ever recruited told me they wanted to go to the NBA, and I've only had one kid make it. Julius
Yeah.
is the only kid that's ever made it to the NBA that I've coached. But they've all told me they want to go play in the NBA, but none of them are. But what are they doing? Well, they're lawyers, they're doctors, they're police officers. There's something, in this world. And that all comes from their degree that they're getting at our university, right? And so we talk a lot about commitment to the classroom here, commitment to each other, commitment to the work ethic that it takes to achieve what we want to do. And I define commitment just like this, and then we don't have to talk about it long because we all love this word anyway. But commitment really has nothing to do with your feelings or your emotions, but it has everything to do with you doing what you said you're going to do to the person or the people that you said it to. And we talk about when we walk on that practice court, no matter what's going on in our lives, no matter if something really bad's happened, girlfriend broke up with us, whatever it is, that when we walk on that court for those 2 hours, that it is our commitment to each other that we're going to give our best to each other because we have goals in place that we're trying to achieve. And it's a commitment that we make to each other to do that. And we really live by that. I don't allow excuses in practice. We never blame another player for something we do wrong in practice. When we write on the board, no excuses. And we don't blame referees. My guys will come back to the huddle. The ref, no, we don't do that. They shut it down. They know we're not about that.
Yeah.
If a referee steals a game from us, then we weren't good enough to win the game in the first place. And that.
Yep.
But we have to, these kids are being brought up in a culture where it's got to be someone else's fault they lost. It's got to be the coach's fault. It's got to be their teammates' fault. It's got to be the ref's fault. It's got to be the parents' fault. It's got to be somebody's fault, right?
Yeah.
And so, we just live with a mindset of we're preparing these kids for life, right? And if they can learn the true meaning of commitment and what it means to be for each other and not make excuses for their performance or lack of performance or whatever, that they are going to be able to keep a job in the future.
Yeah.
Because the big part of this is that, man, if you don't get it done in your job and your boss comes in and goes, hey, man, why didn't you meet your quota this month? And you go, well, so-and-so's fault. The guy that works next to me, it's his fault. Or, man, I don't have the same opportunity as this guy. Or what? You start making excuses, you're going to get fired.
That's right.
They're just going to fire you and go hire someone else that can do your job better.
Yeah.
And so what are we teaching our kids now? And so we live by that pillar of commitment and that no excuse mentality. And then,
I got
ahead.
something to ask though, because what I hear a lot at Faith, especially, is, well, what about grace? We made a mistake. Right. We did. What about grace? I feel like that word is thrown around so much when you have a player, they might not use that word grace, and because a lot of people, I think they use it incorrectly, but when they come around with that idea of, when you have the standard of commitment and no excuses, but they come back at you wanting more understanding on your part or to give them a break. How do you handle that?
Give them a chance.
Give me another chance. Yeah. Like, I mean, we have a policy where their hair can't be down at their eyes. They can't be down at their neck. And we'll enforce it. And immediately we get a parent email, and not me, but our school get parent email saying, well, I thought we were about grace here. That's not what that is. Yeah, but go ahead.
Right. No, what I tell my guys every year is that, we don't give chances to people in games here. And we just don't do it. I mean, and the way I explain it to them is you get a chance every day in practice.
Yeah.
You get a chance every day in practice. Your grace is in practice to screw up that drill or to not make the shot or to not get the rebound or to not block out, whatever it was. You get a chance every day to prove to me that you're going to get that done. And then if you can prove to me with the chance I've given you in practice every day, and this is what I tell their parents too, right? Then guess what? That builds trust with me. And when it comes time for game time, and you have proven yourself because of the chance I've given you in practice that you're going to do what we're asking you to do with the commitment that it takes, and you're not going to make excuses or blame another teammate or have bad body language after it happens or whatever it is the case may be. I said, then you may have that opportunity in the game, but you earn that opportunity in the game from the chances that are given to you every day in practice. And we talk a lot about that here because we believe in a culture of competition, obviously. But at this level, I try to tell them, hey, look, we don't give chances in games. We give chances every day in practice. And it's a perspective thing, right? And if they can embrace practice, because some players like practice more than others, right? Some guys are really good in practice, not so good in the games. And so you got to figure all that out. And every kid's different. And that's why, we have practice, way more than we have games, is to figure all that stuff out. And so we talk a lot about that. And so when they come to me and they're like, Coach, but, could you give me another chance? Can you do that? And I'm like, well, I really have given you that opportunity every day in practice. I'm not seeing you do what you need to do with that chance every day in practice. So I'm going to keep giving you chances in practice, but this other guy, we're going to give him the opportunity in the game this week or tonight or whatever.
And I think so many coaches have heard that statement, like been in that conversation right there. I mean, multiple times throughout the year. But I think a big nugget that you said is you start the year off by letting them know what those expectations are about. Yeah, we're not experimenting in games.
Right.
We're not. I love what you said. You're going to get grace in practice like that. Right. I'm going to borrow that too, because at my parent meeting or every year, the more that we can frame the way that we're going to sub, the way we handle playing time. It's not an exact science. It's not always going to be the same, but the more that we can get them to expect or understand the why behind what we're doing. They won't fully get there, but maybe bring them along a little bit. And I think nuggets like that, or even for our players before we start out, may help their moments where they're really wondering why or they're frustrated. They can always go back to the way you first started this season. Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And so, that's it. And then the third pillar, I would just tell you of our program is we talk a lot about championships here. And we do that on purpose. And I don't make any excuses for that whatsoever. They didn't hire me to just come put together a good basketball program. They hired me to win championships. And I know that. And in fact, I looked at my athletic director when he hired me when I was at my junior college and we were doing well and we had that thing rebuilt and we were rolling. And he looked at me, he said, would you pray about coming to East Texas Baptist and helping us get the program where it needs to be? And I looked at him and I said, well, I just want you to know if you're not interested in winning a national championship, I'm not your guy. And I just said that to my AD and he looked at me and he said, well, good thing. That's the only thing we're interested in. I said, perfect. And so it's a beautiful marriage, right?
What if he would have said, well, no, I mean, just average is okay.
I would still be at that junior college.
There you go. There you go.
But all that being said, I think it's okay to talk about championships here. Jim Valvano, he used to talk about them conceptualizing winning the championship when cutting down the nets. We've all seen the doc, right? The 30 for 30 on it. And I think it's okay to talk about that, paint a bigger picture than maybe they had a picture painted for them before. And so here we talk about a championship mentality. And that is not just about winning the championship, although we do have a goal every year to win the conference
that's the process right there, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But what is the championship mentality? Are we practicing like champions practice? And we go through what that looks like. Are we supporting each other like champions support each other? Are we, getting down on each other when things don't go good? Or do we have a championship mentality where we're picking each other up and we're on to the next play? And then afterwards we can get it right in the locker room, or the next day in practice we can course correct. And so I think the championship mentality is a big deal. And so we talk about that a lot here, what it takes to practice like champions, to live life like champions, and to have a championship mentality in all that we do. Because at the end of the day, God's given us this life to live. And so we are required not just to live the life he's given us, but to live it to what? The best.
Yeah.
To give a championship effort every day, whatever that looks like in your life and in your program and with your team and your teammates.
Coach, I love those three things. And all underneath, like you said, the word for that year, driven. How do you come about on what the theme is?
I really pray about it. It's a thing where my coaches, they kid me all the time. They're like, Coach, has it come to you yet? It's like this evolving thing that happens. But I went out of the country after the season for 2 weeks, and just to get away, clear my head, to write my presentations and my sermons for the summer, for all the speaking I would be doing. And really in that time of just getting away from basketball and just having time away where I could just get clear headed is where this year the word driven came to me. And really how I came about it this year was, okay, last year our word was motivated, and we were motivated to achieve certain things because we didn't have the year we wanted to the year before. And so this year we were motivated to, and we achieved almost every goal we set out this year, right? Never, hardly ever happens, right? And so now it's like, okay, what's going to keep us going? Well, we've got to be driven toward more.
Yeah.
And that's where it came. It was just that concept of there's so much more. Yeah, we lost in the second round of the NCAA tournament on a buzzer beater, right? Up 1, 8 seconds left. Kid fumbles the ball, picks it up, falling out of bounds, throws it up, it goes in. We lose. We go home. Season over, right? I mean, what the second best season in ETBU history that's over like that. It just kills you, right? But those kind of endings to seasons, they'll do two things. Yeah, they'll either cripple you for the next season, or they'll drive you to achieve what you didn't achieve the season before, right? So we want to be driven toward the things and why didn't we achieve more last year than what we did. So we want to be driven toward those things. And so, like, we'll go into our goal setting session on Thursday together as a team, and we'll talk about what we're going to be driven toward all year. And then that'll be our word.
I'm not saying that some coaches don't clearly spell out their culture so that they don't have to live up to it themselves. But I think that does happen when you don't have it clear cut. There's really no pressure on you to hold yourself accountable. But when you do say that culture is important to us, we're a brotherhood, commitment, and we're going to live up to those, and we're going to have a championship mentality every day, then the pressure is on you as the coach to bring that every day on top of all the other things that you go through. How have you felt like that pressure's been for you? Or I mean, obviously not pressure is like a negative word, but I guess the weight of that, like as you're the one that's carrying the culture to your other stakeholders. How have you dealt with that?
Well, I think differently year in and year out. You approach it a little bit differently because your group is different every year, right? It changes it more. Some, for me, I've always said this. I tell my coaches all the time, we've got to be at our best today if we're asking our players to be at their best today. And that's hard when you practice as much as we all practice, right?
Yeah.
And when you play as many games as we all play, it's hard to be at your best as the head coach every day. But man, that to me is the goal. And if you can find balance in preparation, if you can find balance in planning, if you can find balance in execution, and your players can see your passion for what you're doing and your investment and what you're doing, then they go, man, coach is bringing it, man. Coach is on it. He's always got a plan. He's always got energy. He's not sitting on the side barking at us and throwing stuff, but he's in with us. And I just believe when you can bring passion and intensity and compassion in the moments where you need to have it, and understanding in the moments where you need to have it, and they see you on point, on your best, then it takes them to another level, right? But when we're sitting back and we're like, man, y'all do whatever you want, we're in a bad mood or we're not bringing it on that day, we can't be surprised that they're not either. It starts and ends with us.
Yep.
As the leaders, and we all know that, or we wouldn't get into what we're doing, but at the end of the day, that self-drive that's within me has to be very, very evident to my coaching staff and to my players day in and day out, that I am 1000% in on this thing. And when they see it, it's contagious, right? When they don't see it, what's the first thing they're going to say? Well, coach, you don't even have a practice plan. Well, coach, you didn't teach us how to guard that action in practice before the game, before we got it. I mean, that's how they function in their brains. We've got to try to think like players and how they're perceiving what we're doing versus what we think what we're doing. And I think that's a huge deal, And so I don't know how I balance it. I just tell my coaches, try to be better than me today. If you can push me, then if I'm lagging a little bit and you're being better than me, then I'm gonna pick it up. And then, then the players see that and they'll pick it up, and so we just try to really hold ourselves accountable as a coaching staff to really be on point with our planning, with our purpose and what we're trying to accomplish in the day. We just want them to see us putting my first season here, quick story.
Yeah.
My first season here, we got here COVID year, bro. Awful year, man. Practicing in masks. I mean, flying all over the country, just trying to find games. I mean, anyone that would play, and anyone who could pass a COVID test. And I'll never forget, I had a bunch of new kids that year, had a brand new recruiting class. I brought a couple of kids with me from JUCO, but I had all the kids from the previous coach that were here as well. And I just remember, man, our scouting reports were meticulous. Our energy was on point. We did everything right that year. It was just it was a cruddy year. Some of that was outside of our control. Some of that was the mashup year of first year taking over a program. And, but I remember after one game we had lost and we were back in the locker room. We were decent that year. I think we were like 14-8 or something like that. It was about all the games we got in that season. And I remember one of our players standing up in the locker room like, guys, we got to be better than this. He was talking to the rest of the players. He goes, man, look at this scouting report. We knew every action they were going to run. Man, look at how coach prepared us. We knew everything we needed to do to win.
Wow.
And he went through it with the rest of the team in the locker room. And when I left that night, even though we had lost, I walked out that night and I went, okay, we're going to be okay. And the reason I knew that was because they saw that we were doing everything we could to help them be successful. And isn't that the key as coaches?
Yeah.
That your players see that their coaches care enough that we're doing everything we can to help them be successful night in and night out. And that's when they see that and feel that from you, they'll up what they're giving you.
Speed round. These are quick questions. The first thing that pops in your head, your players will get to know you a lot better. You ready?
Yeah.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh man, chocolate chip mint.
Greatest shooter of all time?
Oh, Larry Bird.
Nice.
You like that?
Oh yeah. Normally it's Curry. I like when people throw in some different ones. Best basketball movie of all time?
Hoosiers. No hesitation.
That's like 95%. Yep. Texting or talking?
Talking always.
Okay, I'm in Texas. For a high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
Shot clock. I think it teaches so much, man. The teams out in California. I was a high school coach a long time. We traveled to California, to Vegas to play tournaments, and they had shot clocks. And I think great coaches. I think it makes you a better coach when you can go design things and get a bucket with your players when you need to. Yeah. And so I've always felt that way.
I think it highlights our skill work too. I mean, how much are we really developing him? Because there's a chance that no matter what action we are running, it doesn't work out, and guys have to make plays. And That's so right. I think a lot more emphasis on that. You can't just have dudes that only screen. They may have the ball in their hands. They got to do something.
That's right.
Favorite holiday?
Well, that's a good one. I would just say summer.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that. You're up 3 on defense with 7 seconds left. Do you foul or no foul?
No foul.
Just play it out. If they make it,
my
tip our hat, we'll go to overtime.
Trust my defense.
I love that. What book would you give someone besides the Bible?
That's a good one. There's a book by Stephen A. Lawson. You can Google it, but it's called Men Who Win. Old read, probably out of print, but man, for every coach, it's written from an athletic background on how to win in life, which I think you can take into your coaching is a great book.
Thank you for sharing that. Name a bucket list item you still need to do.
Well, I want to go to the U.S. Open. That's one less thing I want to do, and I'll get there eventually. I've just been traveling so much. I was out of the country this year during it, but I'll get there eventually.
Nice.
Huge tennis fan.
All right, last one, probably the most important in basketball. Who is the GOAT?
God, man, that is the toughest one. Because of the generation I'm from, I'm always going to say Michael Jordan. I grew up watching Michael Jordan play. I think not only was he a great player, but I think his play has transcended time. Now, obviously, Netflix didn't hurt him when they came out with the doc. The last
pretty good timing.
Well, I think it introduced Michael Jordan and that whole era to a generation of kids who had never been exposed to it before. And
what were your thoughts on him in that? What did you, because like you, I'm a huge fan, and back before social media, back before you saw some of those, because, his like Michael Jordan's playground and airtime didn't give you the same view of him that obviously they talked about his fierceness and things, but not the level of leadership that he brought. What were your thoughts on him in that?
Well, I appreciated a lot of it. Let me tell you what I mean by that. I appreciated the fact that he wanted everyone to play at his level. He wanted everyone to play and practice like they were playing for the world championship. And if they weren't, he felt like it was his role to get them there. Man, I think we've lost some of that today. It's like, man, I'm going to take care of myself. We've become so self-absorbed in the basketball world. Well, it's about how I play. And so our team wins and I score 20 points. That's great. But if our team loses and I score 20 points, it's still great. No, it's not great. Michael Jordan never cared about how many points he scored. He never cared about anything but winning.
Yeah.
And raising the level of his teammates' play to his so that they could do something special. And look what they've done. And so I thought it was really cool. I liked seeing the edge. And I thought it was really cool that they promoted the edge of Michael Jordan in that, because that competitive edge isn't always there anymore. We're always about us now.
I don't know if any of our stars have it to that level. Yeah.
Yeah. Michael Jordan was all about the team. He was all about, success. And we see that some, with guys taking pay cuts now to get a better team around them, roster around them, and so forth. But man, I love the edge they portrayed of him, because it wasn't what was promoted of him when he was playing.
Well, Coach, I've been looking forward to this talk. One, just to get to have this time with you. We haven't had a lot of interaction over the years, but there really is just so much appreciation for you in a big way, allowing me to find this place. And a total God thing, I believe, is you coming here for a year, but then obviously moving to Prestonwood and having an amazing career, but helping me to be here. I'm just so thankful for you. And thank you for the example that you give to those of us that are believers, but even if we're not, like a way to coach with excellence, wanting to win, but then also caring about your players and having the right perspective. So just really appreciate you, man.
Man, Matt, it's great seeing you again, man. Praying for God's best in your upcoming season. And man, hey, let's do this again sometime. Love hanging out with you. And man, just remember, I'm cheering for you always.
Thanks, Coach.
Yeah, man. Have a good one.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi Podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.